YouTube, what's good? Senju, back at it again with another video. So for today, we have Throne and Liberty Tico Talks. Now, I'm assuming that this is going to be like their monthly update where they go over and explore Throne and Liberty, fan events, patch notes, important updates, crucial things that they need to talk about. And hopefully we hear a lot of good things from this first version of Tico's Talks, because I've been hearing a lot of good things through the grapevine of them going over bots, RMT, peace bosses, and people have been asking me for my take on it. So today you're gonna get my take, and we're gonna see exactly what Throne and Liberty has to offer on, I would assume, is their first like monthly newsletter update, but in video form. What is this, a Vidoc, I guess you can call it? But well, let's see what Tico's talking about here.
What's up, gamers? Welcome to Tico Talks Throne and Liberty. My name's Tico, and I'm the Globalization Design Manager at Amazon Games for Throne and Liberty. And I'm here to give you some updates on the game and a little peek at what's coming soon. I've been spending a ton of time in the game, having a blast with all of you, and now that we just released our Haunted Harvest Halloween update, I'm even more excited. I hope everyone has had a chance to check out the event. The limited time Haunted Labyrinth Dungeon is so fun, and I love seeing all the clever things people are doing with their outfits to get in the festive mood. Let's talk a bit about how things have been going and what we're planning in the coming months. First, I want to give a huge thank you to the millions of players that have joined us so far on this journey. We wanted to make sure that crossplay was enabled from day one, and it's been awesome to see that investment pay off. This great community has grown so quickly in this first month, and we're just getting started. Of course, any game launch of this magnitude has lots of craziness that comes with it. We've been in constant contact with NCSoft to address player feedback, and we hope you've seen some of that in the last few weeks. So let's talk more about how we're moving forward. Let's start with a topic we all hate and every MMO deals with: bots. The battle against bots is well underway, and I want to tell you a bit about what we're doing to attack bots on multiple fronts. First, we're continuing to improve our detection algorithms and are now running those daily to ban bots as quickly as possible. Second, we're attacking the areas in which bots can operate and continuing to look for ways to make it difficult for bots to do business. But we want to do that while minimizing the impact to real player experience.
That's important. That's very important. Like, there's been a giant issue with the bots, like he said, over a massive portion of MMO communities and even FPS communities. Call of Duty, The Elder Scrolls Online, Destiny, Throne and Liberty. Multiple titles have had issues with bots. And in those games, they tend to be more harmful than good. Like in some games, bots can be kind of fun because you can use them to fill space and whatnot, and yada, yada, yada. I don't care for bots in general, so I would rather not have them. But in most cases, they are very harmful. So it's very good that they are looking towards getting rid of that. It's very good that they're jumping straight to ban. But the very, very important part is that they're making sure that they don't include the bleed over into casual players, because casual players can sometimes be seen as bots through bot activity, walking like a bot, talking like a bot, RPing in chat and doing nothing all day. That could be considered bot activity. You can sometimes have people that, you know, they rubber band their controllers so they don't get kicked from the server because they want to stay in a certain spot. And in some cases, that could be considered bot activity. So knowing how to thread the line between getting rid of bots and not excluding casual players is a very important thing, and I'm glad they're paying attention to that.
We have some plans related to the auction house to impose protections to limit bots' impact there. We will share more on that once we are able, but can't reveal too much detail that could be used to circumvent our safeguards. Third, we're actively actioning players who engage in RMT behavior. Participating in RMT negatively impacts several aspects of the game, including empowering bot activity, compromising the hard work of players who follow the rules, and more. We will continue to action players with more severe punishments as appropriate, including negative loose imbalances, full auction house lockouts, suspensions, and bans, as we have zero tolerance for this type of behavior.
Oh my goodness, send them to jail, Tico. You might as well just send them to jail at that point. You might as well go ahead and extradite them from whatever country they're at and put them behind the bars, because that's what it sounded like to me. My man said, hey, if we catch you doing RMT, we're putting you in the cuffs and we're sending you to the Diddy party downstairs. You will now be first hand to the baby oil brigade.
I'm starting a gang called Diddy's Disciples. Trial says tomorrow, word is bond. Bring your own dick.
Like, brother, whoo, you better not be doing some RMT, because it ain't gonna be looking too good for you or your sphincter. I'm sorry. Like, you, ooh, wait, banned, then you're gonna be in debt, then you got to pay Amazon's IRS because you're in debt, then you got to sit over there and try to escape Diddy at 5 nights in jail. Like, oh man, whoa. Bottom line is, good job on the bots, very good job on RMT, and for anybody participating in both, hey, I better get some Diddy insurance because you're gonna be in some trouble.
The next thing I want to talk to you about is world bosses, which are garnering a lot of discussion in the community. So I want to take some time to discuss that. First, let's talk about loot drops. Many of you have been feeling that world bosses have often left you feeling disappointed because you don't feel there's a meaningful chance to acquire gear during these events. To improve this, we're going to do two things. First, we're going to increase the number of portals that appear for Peace Mode bosses. The portals will be generated based on player counts, but on average, I would expect you to see at least one more portal per boss. This should help spread players out across more fights, giving more opportunities to acquire drops. The second thing is we're introducing a new chest drop that has a chance to be included in your participation reward after the boss dies. This chest will allow you to select one of any of the epic items the boss can drop, which we hope will also give players the agency of choosing a reward that's most relevant to them.
Okay, no, that's huge. That's the best thing I've heard so far. So, to not delve into it too deeply, but a very huge issue right now is that, like you said, if you're participating in world boss fights, there's so many people trying to get to these bosses because they do not spawn at extreme paranormal rates like these random events do. So if it limits the amount of gear that people are able to get from the world bosses, and a good portion of builds rely on these world boss drops. So two problems that creates is RMT, funny enough, because people are going to buy the items that they need directly. And then secondly, extremely high lucent prices in the auction house for simple items that are going to be garbage in like 6 or 7 months. So when you put in something like this, that for one, that portal allowing casual players or even players that are not trying to get into PvP at the time to get to the bosses that they need, that's huge. That already dilutes an already extreme situation. But giving out this loot box, which is going to allow people to pick exactly what they need. I don't know if this is going to be tradable. I highly doubt it, just based off of knowledge of what I know from other games. When developers typically do stuff like this, having tradable items is normally not a thing, because you're just going to have people picking the best items and throwing them up on the market. So if I were to take a wild guess, I would say that this isn't going to be tradable items. But what's huge nonetheless is that this is something for you. If you get lucky enough to get this box, you can pick exactly what you want, which eliminates 90% of the grind for that boss, and you can move on. You don't have to worry about it anymore. No getting up at the wee hours of the crack of dawn and, oh man, I can't do Nirma because I wasted my time getting up, and then it got eclipsed. Like, this is the kind of stuff that you need to do, and I'm glad they're making that change.
All items from this chest will be untradeable, though the non-weapon items can be lithographed if the player chooses.
Oh, dude, that is juice. So basically, weapons are going to be permanently locked to your character. However, all the armor, the accessories, etc. can be lithographed and traded. That is huge, because now it's going to make it, that right there is a W for the entire market, because people are going to be able to dilute the prices by flooding the market with items that they don't want, which makes it a lot easier for people coming into the game to get into the game. That W.
Players can expect both of these changes to be live following our maintenance on October 31st.
Oh, that's so
We've also been paying attention to the impact that the Eclipse skill is having on Peace Mode bosses occurring within Abyss dungeons. We think that this is disrupting the expected flow of gameplay for individuals.
Whoa. Did he speak on eclipses? Hold on. I think that one went right in one ear and out the other. Hold on.
Can expect both of these changes to be live following our maintenance on October 31st. We've also been paying attention to the impact that the Eclipse skill is having on Peace Mode bosses occurring within Abyss dungeons. We think that this is disrupting the expected flow of gameplay for individuals attempting to participate in Peace Mode bosses, which are meant to be a PvP-free experience for those players. So we're making an adjustment so that when Peace Mode bosses spawn in dungeons, there will be an additional new portal outside the dungeon that will take players directly to the safe zone inside the dungeon. This way they can enter the Peace Mode boss as expected without passing through areas that may have turned into a conflict zone due to the Eclipse skill. This change is expected to go live in mid-November.
See, that's huge, because for a lot of you who have seen my videos on this channel, I've been very vocal about the Eclipse skill, Not to mention, there are people in my server that know me specifically for being the anti-Eclipse guy. And it's not because I don't like the mechanic. I actually very much enjoy the mechanic. The problem is that from a PvP perspective, because I PvP a lot, I can understand how detrimental it is to want to go fight a peace boss, and then you get over there and the entire server gets eclipsed and then you can't get to the boss. Especially when those bosses are not meant for PvP. We have arena, you have the guild raids, you have the conflict versions of those bosses. Those are meant for PvP. Peace bosses are not meant to be PvP'd on, which is proven by the fact that when you get into the boss fight itself, even if the area around it is eclipsed, it is a peace fight. So you have people that are personally going out of their way to gate people from the content because they want to keep their guilds at the top. And while I understand that, that's very obnoxious. So not only are you going to ruin the game for everybody else, but any kind of possible new player that wants to come in is not going to come in because everyone who's currently in the game are going to tell people not to join, specifically because every single time you try to get loot, the boss gets eclipsed and then you can't get in. So changing Eclipse to make it so that you can have portals outside of open world dungeons so that people can get to the bosses, but the people using the Eclipse can still benefit from farming the dungeons in a PvP setting, that's a W move. That should have been done from the beginning, but I can understand how that was kind of an oversight. You want to test it, you want to see, so good change.
Eclipse skill itself will continue to change the dungeon into conflict mode, as always. Finally, for bosses, there's been talk about how contribution works in relation to the loot drops. Later this week, we will be releasing an article that defines and describes how loot distribution works across all content types. But I want to briefly touch on this specifically for conflict world bosses. With the recent change locking boss loot to the original owner for 10 minutes, some guilds have been wondering what the value of PvP is in these events. The spirit of the conflict world boss is that guilds are fighting to control the area to allow their guild to damage the boss and raise their contribution, thus increasing their chances to get better loot. In addition to increasing your own contribution though, you can also decrease other guilds' contribution. In conflict mode, you do this by killing players from rival guilds, which will reduce that player's contribution by 70% each death.
Good Lord. But I see the appeal, because if you're trying to farm out loot, that is huge. Like being able to sit there and fight off a guild, reduce their contribution, and boost yours in exchange, that's a good mechanic. I'm okay with that. Especially if your guild is trying to get geared and you're fighting other guilds that are trying to get guild, that's going to be a fun experience because you're going to be there going, oh, well, you know what? This conflict boss, we didn't get it. That's okay. There's a peace version. We can go fight the peace version. If we don't get it there, we can farm the guild raid. And with the improvement of adding the chests, then it's going to be like, oh, well, if you get the chest, just pick what you want. And then at the very last, then you go to the auction house. It's kind of a pseudo pity system. And it's like, oh, well, if everything else fails, go ahead and purchase the lithograph, craft it directly right there. Like, I've seen nothing but W changes right here.
So reducing another guild's contribution increases your relative contribution. So it's a major factor in determining the loot that can drop for you. We are working on introducing some contextual UI indicators of contribution amounts, and we hope that this will help guilds be more strategic about which opponents to focus their attacks on. Moving on from world.
I'm gonna be real. If you really want it to be simple to the point where people can understand how much contribution they're actually having towards a boss fight, really all you need to do is kind of come up with a guild UI system when you're in the middle of boss fights and make it work essentially kind of equivalent to what a health bar would be. So you're able to see the amount of contribution per player in your group towards the boss. And as people die, their contribution level goes down, or as they kill players, it goes up, and you're able to see who has the highest chance at getting a piece of loot during that fight. So if you really want to keep track of your contribution and you really want to say, oh, well, you know what? We need to protect this guy because this guy has 90% of contribution so far. So let's try to make sure that he doesn't die so he can try to get loot. Then you can, band up to protect that player. And honestly, I think it would actually enhance the PvP experience if you do that. Because you'd be able to sit there and then say, oh, well, you know what, such and such is at 90%. Everybody get in front of, yeah. It will create an entirely new strategic way to play around conflict bosses on top of trying to avoid the boss mechanics and then dealing damage in the first place. So I would probably do that. I don't know what they have planned. I know he said contextual UI, but if I were to sit over there and come up with something, that's pretty much what I would do, because it's the easiest way to go about it where people can understand what's going on, but also provide a new way to play without having to change mechanics.
Bosses, I want to talk about co-op dungeons. We have made 3 recent changes to matchmaking for dungeons. To help with queue experiences, we introduced a new option to queue for a random dungeon when using party matchmaking, and we made a change to better match players based on their combat power, to better align group capabilities. To help with completion rates, we increased the damage and HP buff when queuing through matchmaking to be 10%, up from 5%. All of these changes went live on October 17th. Then, in order to improve the rate in which players can acquire their desired gear, we made another change following the Haunted Harvest Halloween update that provides a bonus reward when queuing for random dungeons. Each successful random dungeon completion will reward 1 additional dimensional soul shard, and will also have a chance at a larger reward of 1 dimensional essence. We hope that these changes have had a meaningful impact to your experience with co-op dungeons. We're going to keep monitoring the data, we're going to keep listening to player feedback, and we'll continue to tweak if needed. All right.
What I will say is that those were probably the most impactful changes, because you're gonna go see, the main issue with running dungeons prior to that update was the fact that if you were to run dungeons, then you basically had like 3 hours of a wait time trying to get into Temple of Slaughter, because everybody was on the party board trying to target farm items that they specifically needed, and the loot is so spread out that there are just going to be dungeons that don't have loot that people need, so they won't even run it, which creates increased queue times. The beauty of the random system is that no matter what dungeon you run, you're guaranteed to get an additional shard that you can choose, and you have a chance of getting an entirely completed dimensional token, which is going to significantly shorten the grind that it takes from you to get to point A to point B on dungeon gear. So now you can run dungeons at random, you get the loot for the dungeon that you're target farming, you get the chance to choose a coin and the chance to get a full coin. So overall, the best way to run dungeons, funny enough, is doing the random queue. And then if you really just want to target farm a specific area and you got a really stacked group and you just want to rapid fire the boss, then you can go into the party finder, do all of that. But even then, you could just create a group from scratch. So realistically, I would just, funny enough, get rid of all the other options and just put random queue, and then just let people random queue and show the loot table for the bosses, because 90% of the people playing the game are going to go straight into random queue. There's no reason to go into the regular bosses anymore, because those bosses don't give you a chance at getting the coins. So W change, I'm good with it.
All right, let's talk now about some major systems that players may already be familiar with because of their time playing on the Korean service. In particular, I want to talk about 2 systems: Substance Transformation and the Rune system. And I want to be very clear here. Neither of these systems will launch in our service with their current functionality. We're working closely with NCSoft to make updates, and both systems will be improved in a way that will satisfy both Korean and global users. While not all changes are finalized, here are some things I can say for now. For the Rune system, it will have at a minimum the following adjustments. First, Rune slot unlocking will no longer require RNG to obtain your desired slot type. Second, we're introducing a separate Rune bag with improved searching capabilities to reduce the burden on your traditional inventory and storage, while also making it easier to find your desired runes. For Substance Transformation, it will at a minimum be changed so that tradable items cannot be used in the system. This means you cannot infinitely buy items from the auction house to feed the system to earn rewards. Since the amount of items that can be fed may be decreased because of this, we're evaluating the requirements of how much has to be fed into the system to gain rewards. Although we don't have any specific changes related to trait resonance at this time, this system is not planned to release in the near future, and we are still actively discussing any potential adjustments for this system with NCSoft prior to its release. While we're on the topic of upcoming systems, I want to talk about a growing desire from our players to have the ability to engage in more structured PvP outside of the competitive large-scale options currently available in the open world events and conquest battles. I'm happy to say this is something we've had on our radar for a while, and we're excited to bring you a new feature that will come in mid-November that will provide on-demand battle feature. I don't want to reveal too much yet, but this will allow players to engage in non-competitive PvP across arenas and conquest battles, with varying numbers of teams and team sizes, both in.
So we're basically getting new PvP modes in the near future that are going to be across arena and conquest. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that's open world, but in specific like open world areas and just the arena, obviously, but it's non-competitive. So it sounds to me like they're experimenting with like a team deathmatch MMO style, maybe even domination, which if that's the case, this game is about to blow up. Because the one thing that MMOs and PvP lack in general are really good variety when it comes to PvP. They, in most cases, for a lot of them, they just kind of stick to the typical, you know, kill confirmed, or not kill confirmed, but, you know, free for all, or, you know, kill them all. But adding objectives in an MMO to PvP is huge, and they have a really good thing going with the overworld PvP, with some events being Dominion events, some of them being Guild and Conflict, and this is huge. Like, this is huge. I'm down for it.
In public and private matches. So stay tuned for more updates about.
Yo, wait. We're getting private matches? Hey, you heard it here. I'm starting a league. Because if we're getting private matches, then I can do what I've been wanting to do forever for any kind of MMO. And that's start a weekend champs league, where it is a bracketed league for PvP teams to go through and prove that they're truly the best at the game. It's going to be standard. It's going to be locked to certain gear requirements, so you can't exceed any kind of gear thresholds. Everybody has to fight at the same level, and it comes down to who is better and who has the better strategy. But man, if you're telling me we can get private matches, I'm doing it.
About that in the coming weeks. There's been so much great feedback from everyone in the community, both positive comments and suggestions for how to improve the game. Thank you. We're really grateful that you are all this invested in helping us continue to improve the game. We're just getting started, and this week on October 31st, our first player survey will open. You will be able to access it from the Silesium notice board in-game, and I want to really encourage you to take it. We take the results very seriously, and real actions have spawned from all of our previous surveys. We're always listening to your feedback, whether it's through the surveys, reading your reviews on the major gaming platforms, or comments in Discord and social media. We're always using your voice to help guide our development and using it to improve the overall Throne and Liberty experience. So please keep the feedback coming. All right, that brings us to the community question. What we'd really like to know is, what would you like to see changed in Throne and Liberty? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Please like and subscribe. That lets us know that you want more of these kinds of videos. We'll read each and every comment, so let us know what you think. I really hope this was informative. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in Silesium.
All right, listen. Good changes all around. You got no complaints from me. You know, I'd hate to be that guy that sits over there and is positive about everything, but it's very rare that you get development studios that are actually putting in the time and effort to make their game better. It's not like this game launched in a bad state. I'll be honest with you. This is probably one of the best MMOs that I've played in launch state because of the fact that I haven't been kicked from the server every 2 seconds. In fact, the biggest issue that I've had with the game was on launch day, and that was because there were so many people loading into the game that the frames on my rig were getting bricked. That's the biggest issue I've had with the game outside of Eclipse. But that's about it. Everything else is good. And I think a lot of people are hating on it simply because they hear pay to win and they just need something to hate on. And it's one of those cases where they're scouring the game trying to find something that's wrong with it, and they can't, so they make a bunch of BS up. The game is good. It's in a really good spot, and the future looks pretty good. So as long as they continue to do these minuscule changes over time, provide updates, and be vocal with the community, the game is going to the moon. Honestly, it's one of the best MMOs I've played in a very long time. There's a reason why so many people are playing it, and this right here with Tico has just proved that they are dedicated to making changes that actually benefit their players and spawn from good feedback. Eclipse changes, RMT, you got bans on bots, you have the boss changes, the peace changes, the Eclipse changes. These have been things that have been complained about from day one, and they're getting fixed. You have changes that are coming to systems that aren't even currently in the game yet because they want to perfect them before they bring them out here. Like this is the kind of things that we want to see from studios moving forward. And it's sad that Amazon is the first one to do it with their horrible history. But if Amazon is the first to do it, then so be it. Keep your foot on the pedal, Amazon, and keep like this. Don't get greedy. Don't do that. Let players actually spend money the way that they want to. And all you need to do is just continue to drop content in the pipeline and make good patches. And the money will come. Follow that. Do that. Don't get greedy. Outside of that, W Patch or W Tico's Talks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you leave a like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take it easy.